I mean, I think, looking at the Reform Party, we all know the rhetoric of the Reform Party, and that there has been a lot of rhetoric around Islamophobia and pushing Islamophobia. And one of their candidates reportedly said that Muslims, migrants, and Africans have low IQ. We also have had other comments about it's Muslims' fault, and Nigel Farage himself has come out and said that Muslims don't fit with the democratic values of the UK, and this kind of stuff is really worrying because it's not migrants or refugees or Muslims' fault that we're in the condition that we're in within the UK right now. It is in the places of power that we're in the very difficult conditions that we're in right now. The other thing is that what we're seeing is that parties are trying to divide people. They're trying to find a scapegoat and somebody to blame, and unfortunately that is Muslims right now. It's not Muslims' fault there is an economic crisis. It's not Muslims' fault that we have a housing shortage. Everybody who lives in the UK has a right to housing, has a right to democratic voice, has a right to access services. And also the other thing is we often hear that, it's migrants coming over and, stealing all our benefits. Migrants are not entitled to benefits, so actually they're not accessing benefits. They also have to pay into the NHS in order to, come over to the UK and access visas and things like that. But yet migrants are still being blamed for this kind of thing. And often what's happening though is they're putting migrants and Muslims together, even though a Muslim may be third, fourth generation, paying their taxes, putting into society. But even if they're not putting into society, even if they are unfortunately unemployed, they still have absolutely the same right to be here and not to be scapegoated and not to be targeted. And I think what we're finding is it's the Islamophobic rhetoric from the parties in power and the parties who have been in power previously, but also when you're finding that newer parties like the Reform, who did come from UKIP, what we are finding is that this rhetoric is being carried on, and it's really negative, and it's something that we do need to stand up and challenge, and we do need to fight back against. And this is why organisations like MEND are so valuable.